With 24 Grand Slam trophies in his cabinet, Novak Djokovic holds a record that might stand until the end of time. Yet, when he stormed into the Australian Open final in January 2026, breaking an 18-month dry spell on the big stage, he stood on the precipice of immortality, just 4 sets away from becoming the first human being, male or female, to claim 25 majors. But Carlos Alcaraz denied him that glory. It was what happened afterwards, under the glare of the press room lights, that caught the ear of Boris Becker, a legend who knows exactly what it costs to dominate this sport, and left him convinced he had just heard a quiet surrender, a subtle confession that the hunt for number 25 might have reached its final, insurmountable dead end. The true adversary in this story isn't Alcaraz, nor is it Sinner. The real barrier is a ghost that has been haunting the baseline for over 12 months, yet the pundits and fans keep skirting around the issue, refusing to look it dead in the eye. Djokovic didn't blame strategy or skill. He dropped a single heavy word: physicality. It wasn't about outplaying the man across the net. Speaking candidly after the Melbourne showdown, he confessed that toppling both Sinner and Alcaraz in back-to-back 5-set wars is a puzzle he no longer knows how to solve. It is not that they possess superior rackets or sharper instincts on a single point, he can still match them stroke for stroke, but demanding his body outlast 2 young lions over 5 grueling sets, at the age of 38, pushes him past the red line of his physical limits. Give him a best-of-3 format, and he insisted the narrative changes completely. In a sprint, he backs himself against anyone. But dragging that battle out over 5 sets, day after day in the Melbourne oven, the Parisian dirt, or the London lawns, is a different beast entirely. He didn't dodge the inquiry with PR cliches. He looked the truth in the face and admitted just how brutal the mountain has become. Consider the sheer absurdity of winning a major when you are 38. You have to survive 7 marathon wars, spread across 14 days, facing relentless athletes 15 or 20 years your junior, who are currently living in their absolute physical prime. The clock is your enemy. You have less than 48 hours to rebuild yourself after every fight. That recovery window slams shut a little faster with every birthday. It becomes a relentless juggling act of sleep, diet, and body maintenance, taxing your nervous system and draining your willpower for 2 straight weeks while you desperately try to prep for the next gladiator waiting in the tunnel. For decades, Djokovic made this superhuman feat look routine. However, the precise way he framed his thoughts after the Melbourne final, drawing a hard line between 3-set sprints and 5-set wars as if they were entirely separate sports, exposes a reality that the scoreboards hide. One is a dash to the finish, the other is a test of survival. And asking a 38-year-old body to run back-to-back endurance tests against the 2 deadliest players on Earth is simply asking too much. Boris Becker, dissecting that interview, felt he was witnessing a coded resignation, a belief that Djokovic was indirectly conceding that the major title is now a fantasy, not because the fire is gone, but because Father Time and the brutal format have finally cornered him. It isn't about a flaw in his backhand or the names on the draw sheet. It is simply the crushing weight of 5 sets repeated at age 38. Becker has lived in that arena. He knows the language of champions and isn't one to throw around hot takes for headlines. He saw Djokovic's words for what they were, the cold calculation of a genius with extreme self-awareness, diagnosing his own mortality with surgical precision. And that is the pivotal detail everyone seems to ignore. Whenever people debate the 25th Slam, they instantly fixate on Alcaraz and Sinner, acting as if the trophy would be Djokovic's if those 2 just vanished. But the Serbian legend never spun the story that way. He knows they are the gatekeepers waiting for him at the finish line. However, his doubt doesn't stem from them cracking his code or outsmarting his tactics. The problem is the gauntlet itself. Surviving the first 4 or 5 punishing rounds over 2 weeks at 38 drains the tank before the final battle even begins. Who stands across the net matters less than what remains in his legs. Yevgeny Kafelnikov, a 2-time major winner who hasn't been shy about discussing Djokovic's twilight years, framed the physical decline differently, but landed on the exact same bleak conclusion. He pointed to the Athens Hellenic Championship in late 2025, where Djokovic secured career title 101, noting that even this lower-tier tournament exacted a heavy toll on his veteran frame. Battling a 22-year-old Lorenzo Musetti, a kid in his athletic prime, was a dogfight, even with lower stakes. Kafelnikov wasn't trying to downplay the victory. Hoisting any trophy at age 38 is a feat of greatness, but rather to spotlight the brutal physical toll that even minor skirmishes now extract from a chassis redlined for over 2 decades. If surviving 4 bouts in Athens feels like climbing Everest, then enduring 13 clay court wars at Roland Garros is a different dimension of agony. Kafelnikov took it a step further, speculating that the Serbian legend might have already secretly pivoted his endgame strategy away from chasing majors altogether. The all-time crown for tour victories remains with Jimmy Connors, who racked up a staggering 109 trophies. Djokovic stands at 101, trailing the American legend by a mere 8 wins, and with his retirement party seemingly booked for the 2028 Los Angeles Games, he has roughly 2 years to erase that deficit. The theory floated on the podcast was blunt. Djokovic is going to pour his remaining fuel into snatching every title within reach, regardless of prestige, wherever he can still dominate. The 250s, the 500s, maybe the Masters 1000s if the stars align, instead of destroying himself in back-to-back Grand Slam fortnights for a payout that his aging biology makes less likely by the day. In Kafelnikov's eyes, this shift doesn't chip away at the champion's legacy one bit. It is the mark of a genius tactician listening to his own physiology and recalibrating his sights to survive. Viewed in this light, the Athens showdown in late 2025 revealed far more than the scoreboard let on. He bagged career title number 101 there, battling through 4 rounds to crush Lorenzo Musetti. The victory was genuine. The hardware was real. Yet the insight that even this exertion 4 clashes, including one against a 22-year-old athletic freak, laid a massive tax on a body battered by 20 years of pro tennis, flips the script completely. It wasn't just a trophy. It was a grim receipt showing exactly what it costs him to step on court now, and how fast that bill is compounding as he nears the finish line. The quest for 109 titles is actually the most gripping twist in this saga. Because if Kafelnikov is on the money, it rewrites the entire narrative of his final act. Connor's record has been an untouchable monolith for decades. No one has even breathed down its neck. Sitting at 101, the Serb is the only modern gladiator in the rearview mirror, and closing an 8-title gap is hardly a fantasy. Not for a man still hoisting trophies, still capable of dismantling the top 10 on his best days, and who has sworn to fight on for at least 2 more seasons. But hunting that milestone demands a radically different war plan than chasing slams. It means entering more lists, slumming it below the Masters 1 to 1,000 level if need be, cherry-picking weeks where a deep run is all but guaranteed without the soul-crushing physical toll that a 2-week best-of-5 marathon exacts. It implies, as the Russian ace suggested, potentially ghosting some majors entirely to save his legs for events where the risk-to-reward ratio actually makes sense for his timeline. The drama at the 2026 Australian Open proved this physical theory more vividly than any spreadsheet ever could. Djokovic cruised through his bracket in Melbourne with Lady Luck firmly in his corner. 2 of his slated opponents pulled the ripcord early, either withdrawing or retiring mid-fight, meaning he walked into the semi-final against Sinner with a gas tank far fuller than his rivals. He edged out the Italian in a 5-set classic, snapping a losing streak dating back to late 2023. It was a vintage masterclass. Surgical, calculated, and played with a physical intensity that left the tennis world floored. But the final against Alcaraz 48 hours later revealed the ugly truth that the semi-final victory had masked. He took the first set in commanding fashion, briefly resurrecting the Djokovic of old gliding effortlessly, anticipating every ball and ruling with that backhand. Then Alcaraz hit the accelerator. The momentum shifted, and the fumes of Djokovic's stamina from the semi-final began to evaporate. He bowed out in 4 sets, no disgrace in it. But the 2025 season had already screamed the data. The tectonic plates were shifting. Before that, you'd have to rewind to 2018 to find the last time he dropped 3 in a row, a 7-year run of ironclad consistency that defined his era. In 2025, that impossible slump happened twice. His rally tolerance, the metric of his ability to survive long exchanges, took a nosedive, and his fortunes on slow courts, where the points drag on and the pain multiplies, mirrored that decay far more than the fast tracks did. He was crashing out of opening rounds at venues he once owned. The aura was fading. Suddenly, too many guys believed they could take down the king. When that seed of doubt spreads across the locker room, it creates a snowball effect that directly impacts the scoreboard. That legendary shield of invincibility, the one that crushed spirits before a ball was even struck and sustained him for 2 decades, is finally showing cracks. Before the action kicked off in Melbourne, Pat Cash pinpointed this exact dynamic as the heart of the issue. It isn't just about the individual brilliance of Alcaraz or Sinner. The nightmare scenario is having to dismantle them one right after the other. Cash was blunt, stating he simply couldn't visualize a world where Djokovic survives back-to-back five-set wars against that duo, marking that physical gauntlet as the ultimate barrier for the 2026 season. He emphasized that the holy grail for a veteran athlete in their twilight years is finding the sweet spot, grinding hard enough to survive marathon matches without burning out the engine before the opening round even starts. Djokovic has danced along that razor's edge masterfully for years, yet the path gets thinner and more treacherous with every passing season. Back in December 2025, Tim Henman echoed those sentiments, conceding that Novak still had the goods to reach a championship Sunday, but the catch was that he would need a hired gun in the draw to knock out one of the young titans for him. If he is forced to clear the path himself and dragged into consecutive brawls with Alcaraz and Sinner, the physical math just stops adding up in his favor. On the Nothing Major podcast, Jack Sock tipped his cap to the Aussie Open run, but ultimately landed on the same grim verdict for the year ahead. He pointed out that Melbourne has always been Novak's sanctuary, the place where his fire burns hottest, where the courts feel like home, and his body operates at peak frequency. With 10 of his 24 majors claimed down under, he holds a dominance over a single venue that remains unmatched in the Open era. Even the Melbourne faithful, who rallied behind him with intense, emotional fervor during the final week of the 2026 event, fed him a level of electricity that was genuinely tangible, something Djokovic himself later admitted was a sensation he hadn't felt in a long time. Sock's argument hit hard. If there was one last battleground where the magic could happen, where surface, fans, and hunger synced perfectly, it was there. Compare that to the clay courts of Roland Garros at age 39. Dragging your body through five-set grinders against kids 2 decades, your junior is a totally different beast. Hall of Fame journalist Steve Flink flipped the script entirely regarding the obsession with a 25th Grand Slam title. He argued that chasing number 25, while iconic for nudging him past Margaret Court on the combined all-time list, loses its luster when you respect the distinct competitive realities of the men's and women's tours, as they rightfully should be. Viewed correctly, Djokovic already sits alone on the throne with 24 titles. A 25th trophy pads the stats, sure, but it doesn't rewrite his legacy the way the media hype machine implies. Flink suggests the real prize, the one that truly fuels Novak's ego, is becoming the oldest Grand Slam champion in Open-era history, an honor currently held by Ken Rosewall, who conquered the Australian Open at 37 years and 2 months. Having seized the 2023 US Open at 36 years and 4 months, Novak is already knocking on the door in second place. Just one more major glory, regardless of the venue, vaults him past Rosewall and secures a record that stands entirely on its own merit. That specific hunger chasing the age milestone rather than just adding to the pile might be the silent, potent fuel driving him, far more than simply extending a lead he already commands. But we have to contextualize what breaking that age barrier truly represents beyond the raw data. When Rosewall triumphed in 1972, the sport was a different animal: shorter points, slower surfaces, and tiny rackets. While the athleticism was elite for its time, it wasn't in the same universe as the grueling physical toll demanded by modern Grand Slams. For Djokovic to hoist a trophy at 38 or older would be an exponentially greater feat, simply because the modern physical environment is so much more hostile. Today's game extracts a heavier tax from the body with every single shot, game, and set than any prior era in sports history. The mere fact that this record is plausible for Djokovic speaks volumes about his physical mastery, something a simple trophy count can't fully articulate. The thread that weaves through all these expert takes and ties them directly to Novak's own confession in the Melbourne Media Centre remains the same. The true enemy isn't the man standing on the other side of the net. It's never really been just about Alcaraz or Sinner. These two phenoms are absolutely exceptional. Honestly, they are likely the most dominant duo in men's tennis since the golden era of Federer and Nadal. Yet, Novak at his peak has tamed giants before. He took down Nadal on the red clay repeatedly, a feat the world claimed was impossible. He walked onto the grass at Wimbledon and shattered the Federer mystique time and again, another task they said couldn't be done. Even in the last 2 years, he has found ways to outmaneuver Alcaraz and Sinner whenever the stars aligned just right. That semi-final clash in Melbourne made it crystal clear. The problem isn't the rival anymore. It is the brutal price he pays just to reach them. Going the distance at 38 years old drains the tank in a way that 48 hours of rest simply cannot fix. Sure, the legs loosen up, the serve returns. But that deep, primal well of energy, the secret weapon he has always summoned to survive a fifth-set thriller, is running dry. The resource that powered those miraculous Wimbledon escapes and US Open tiebreak wars takes much longer to replenish than it used to. Don't call it a slump, it is just cold, hard physics. This is the inevitable result of pushing a human engine to its absolute limit for over 20 years. And nobody understands that mechanics better than Novak. That is precisely why, when he flagged the 5-set format as the true enemy instead of blaming the guys returning his serves, the real tennis insiders in the room sat up and took notice. He wasn't making excuses. The reality is that a 5-setter steals a piece of a 38-year-old soul that 2 days of recovery can't give back. A 2-week Grand Slam campaign becomes a compounding debt on the body. It hits more than just the muscles. It wreaks havoc on sleep cycles, digestion, the nerves, and the body's defenses. Djokovic gets this because he has dissected the science of performance like perhaps no other athlete in history. From his strict nutrition to his obsession with sleep hygiene and the microscopic management of his workload throughout the year. Those are the very hacks that defied time and kept him in the arena at 38 to begin with. But you can't stop time. You can only drag your feet. During that final in Melbourne, the ticking of the clock was deafening. Still, don't count him out. He stated plainly that he is not hanging up the racket yet, eyeing the 2028 Los Angeles Games as his finish line. Whether he snags that 25th major or not, the closing act of his career is going to be a spectacle worth witnessing, regardless of the trophy count. Statistically speaking, he stands alone as the undisputed king of men's tennis. He is fully aware of his status, and so is every man standing across the net. While the hunt for one last slam is intriguing, it is really just a subplot now. But I am curious to hear your take. I have a specific question for you. Do you believe Novak Djokovic has one more major title in him to hit number 25 before he walks away for good?